I don't know about you, but I've always been curious to know why VCs are compelled to put big bucks behind entrepreneurs. And unequivocally, they say, beyond skills, knowledge, capabilities, or experience, the one thing they look for, the one thing, is the ability of someone to walk through walls. Right? That's the term they actually use. Because the road to doing something new is paved with disappointments, setbacks, and sacrifices. And so the only way you can get through that is if you're powered by a compelling why. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? So in fact, Mark Twain actually says the two most important days in a person's life are the first day, what do you think? The day they were born. What's the second day? The day they figure out why. Not everybody gets that second day. That second day is actually, though you don't know you're going through it at the time, is a gift. So I'm going to tell you about my gift of my second day, the reason behind J&J Innovation and J-Labs. So the story starts out, it's the mid-90s. I'm living in Beijing. I'm working for a global telecoms company at the time. I was recruited into the firm from my MBA program. I was recruited into doing a fast-track program where you rotate in different roles and different business units and different geographies around the world with one day of becoming president. And so I started with them in Calgary. I'm Canadian. I went to Toronto, went to Raleigh, North Carolina, went to London, England, and there I found myself in Beijing. I'd been there for about 2 years. I was about to set off to my next location, and I was excited. I was living my dream. I was seeing the world. I was on a fast-track career trajectory, and I was making a lot of money. And that was really important to me at the time because I started my life in a very humble place. I grew up at the end of a little dirt road in northern Saskatchewan, way up north, in a house that was about 1,000 square feet with 5 brothers and 3 sisters and my 2 parents. And we had no running water and no plumbing and no electricity. So, as you might imagine, particularly in the winters when it get down to minus 40 degrees Celsius, life could be challenging. So from the time I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to change my story, right? I was not going to be poor anymore. So I fought my way to get to this company to do this. So I thought I had it all, right? Until one day I'm walking through the forest. I'm going to the International Beijing University, and I get bit by a bug. Within 24 hours, I land in the International Health Clinic. And I'll never forget the day. It's within the first 24 hours, the doctor comes up to me and he says, listen, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but there's nothing more we can do for you here. We're going to have to send you over to the local Beijing hospital. And if any of you know what the local Beijing hospital was like in the mid-90s, you know the old adage was, it doesn't matter what you go in there with because you are never coming out. So I started negotiating with the doctor. I said, doc, you cannot send me there. If you send me there, I will die. And he said, I'm sorry, but if you stay here, you will die. So that kicked off the beginning of a 2-month journey for me where every night I went to sleep at night not knowing whether I was going to wake up the next day. And there's something about that conversation that happens in your head late at night that changes you, right? And it changed me. It changed me in that I knew that if I got that gift of that second day, that I could not be here just to change my story. I had to be here to change many people's stories. And yet at the same time, I knew that that story had to be personal to me. And folks, it was not lost on me that here I was in Beijing. I was trying to figure out how to order a soda from the vending machine with my cell phone. And yet, you cannot take a blood test and figure out what I have? how could it be possible that we as a company, we as a society, be spending all this money on something so frivolous, and yet there was this basic human healthcare gap that existed? And how could I have been spending all my time doing this when my life depended on this? So that's when I figured out, if I got the gift of the second day, that's what I would do. I would change the healthcare industry to be just as sexy and advanced, as productive as the tech industry. And so I survived. I made it. Clearly, I'm here with you tonight. But I quit my job. Hey, there you go. I quit my job. My company thought I was crazy. I was going to the top. But I said, I'm not crazy, I'm compelled. There's something I need to do. So I was not a scientist. I was not going to cure HIV or hepatitis C or cancer myself, but I was a good business person. So I thought, well, what if I overlaid my technology commercialization lens on the life science industry? Maybe I'll figure something out that nobody else had considered before. So I started out with, what does it take to commercialize in the tech industry? In the tech industry, it goes a little bit like this. You give a couple of guys a couple of computers and a couple $100,000, and a couple years later, they can turn around and sell it to Microsoft or Yahoo or Google for $200 million. Fast and easy like a rap song, right? In the life science industry, it's more like an opera. It takes you at least a year to raise your financing, to get your infrastructure up and running, to buy your equipment, to get your operations team in place, to get your permits and licenses, and even then it takes you what? 8 to 12 years to get a drug to market and billions of dollars. So from the outside looking into the industry, I thought, who in their right mind would start a life science company? By the time they get it to market, if they ever do, they're so diluted, the only thing they're making is a difference, and folks, that's not sustainable. From an investor's perspective, which investor would you rather be? The investor who puts $500,000 into Instagram to sell it for $1 billion 2 years later? Or do you want to be the poor schmuck who puts $300, $400 million into an oncology play that has, in every likelihood, a chance to fail and never reach market? So then I knew, well, that's the problem I need to solve. I need to make it just as cheap and fast and easy to start a life science company as to start a tech company, and just as good return of investment. So then you say, well, how do you solve that problem? That's great, you've identified it. Well, how do you solve the problem? So I again went back to what I knew. I was in a big company. I would rotate in different positions. I would have about a year to get a project or a product up and running. And I could do that because every place I went to, there was infrastructure there. There was a place, there was equipment, there was an operations team, there was a marketing team, there was a legal team. So all I had to do was focus on the product, my project. So I thought, well, what if I could create a big company for early stage life science companies where they could get started quickly and easily without needing a lot of money and having the infrastructure around them. So I got a grant. $6 million. I got 40,000 square feet of space. I built it on labs. Half the space I made common research space filled with equipment. The other half of the space I made individual wet lab modules and office modules. So you could get started as an individual researcher coming out and starting a company with 5 feet of bench space. You could grow all the way up to 5,000 square feet of space. But you could start out at an affordable price point where you could literally put it on your credit card, like a gym membership. And then you would have access to an operations team that would take care of all your day-to-day activities, so you could focus your time and your money on the science. And then I hired a business commercialization team that could do everything from help you form a company from a research project to scaling it up to getting funding. And our companies did really well. In our very first model, within 5 years, they had raised almost $2 billion. But more importantly to me was that they had said they could do in 1 year what had taken them 4 years to do before. So, were we successful? So far, so good. Had we solved the industry problem? Not even close. Because the scale of the problem was so big, we had to expand. So we went to expand to San Diego. I had been living in the Bay Area at the time. And actually, that's where I met a very entrepreneurial team, believe it or not, at Johnson & Johnson. And that team had the same passionate pursuit of patient solutions that I'd only seen in small companies before. And so we realized that if we combined our strengths together, we could do something pretty great. So we did Model 2.0 of what I'd done before, J Labs. We did it in San Diego, did 40,000 square feet. We did the same model. And companies came from all over the world to be a part of this. And it was exciting. They were doing really great things. And so we expanded all over the country. San Francisco, Boston. We're just about to open in Houston. We're about to announce a new site shortly. And the companies came to us because we did everything we wanted it to do. We wanted it to be so companies weren't risking their entire life savings to come and do something that would make a difference for others. That it would allow them to get connected and build smart companies faster, and it would be a better return for investors. And for us at Johnson & Johnson, it allowed us to look at a lot of companies without necessarily having to invest up front, to get to know them, to attract the best, know the team and technology better, and then customize the deal terms for them. Because it's not just about dollars and cents. It's about the people behind the technology, because a lot of them are doing it because they're also powered by a compelling why. So knowing that makes a difference to the kinds of deal terms we offer them. So we've done a lot of deals. In the last year alone, we've done 20 deals with 70 of the resident companies. We're ramping up rapidly. We have about capacity for 250 coming this year. But we can only do that if we solve the second piece of the puzzle. We needed to be able to do deals. So we created a new type of deal team within J&J. We created the innovation centers that are in 4 locations around the world. And these deal teams have science scouts that can do deep diligence on the science, but then they have transaction and new venture folks that can customize the deal around the science. So we can do very traditional types of deal terms, equity investing, licenses, mergers and acquisitions, but we can do very non-traditional things. We can do proof of concept grants. You're doing something revolutionary. We love it. You love it. But you actually really don't know if it's going to work or not. So tell you what, do a $100,000 proof of concept contract, 3 months. We'll give you the money for free. Because you're going to know then, and we're going to know then. You're going to learn, and we're going to learn. And if it works, great. We'll do another deal together. And if it doesn't work, it's not failure. It's learning. We'll do something else. And so we created these deal teams, and they've been doing hundreds of deals a year, sprinkling little bets wherever they go, so that we can fuel a whole new community of innovators. Are we making a difference? Yes, we are. Do we still have a long ways to go? Absolutely. Has the road to doing something new like this been paved with disappointments, setbacks, and sacrifices? Absolutely, all the way, especially when you're trying to change a big company like this. But I am surrounded by a group of people who are also compelled by a powerful why. Our chief science officer was an infectious disease doc. He started out his career that way. All he wanted to do was be in the trenches in Africa and solve infectious diseases. And eventually he got ran out of the country because he was in a country with a revolution, and he went back and he joined a biotech company with Dr. Paul Janssen. Dr. Paul Janssen said to him, come join me because you can scale your impact. You can do vaccines, you can do therapies, and it can be much more effective across a larger group of people. So he did that. Janssen got bought by J&J. He came inside. There was a key program there that the company wasn't going to progress because at the time it was going to make enough money. So he said, I'm going to take this out because it's going to be so powerful to a group of people. He took it out, grew it into a $100 million company. J&J bought it. He came back in. And he said, okay, now I'm back in. So what I'm going to do is go after things that are right for the patient and right for the innovator, because I know I was an innovator. I know that the power behind what we do comes from the external world. And so he says this as a call to action for us, and so I'll leave this with you today. This is our mandate. To save one life is significant. To save millions of lives now, that's addictive. So come get addicted with me. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.